Hello everyone, this is Dr. Ghanesham Chavan. Welcome back in the session of Human Anatomy and Physiology 2. In the today's session, we will continue digestive system. This will be the fifth lecture of digestive system. In this presentation, we will discuss about the small intestine as well as large intestine. What is small intestine? It is the organ which is attached to the stomach. After the pyloric sphincter, the small intestine starts. Small intestine can be divided into three parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. This intestinal content is having the pH 7.6 and almost 1 to 2 liter of intestinal juice or secretions secretes in intestine. Intestine is responsible for digestion as well as absorption of most of the foods. The small intestine almost absorbs 70 to 90% of fluid which is located in the lumen. This small intestine is having size near about 3 meter, but in cavaders mean dead person, CAVADR, cavader, in dead person it is 6.5 meter. Why it is there? Because in the normal living human being it is in contractile condition, but in case of the dead person it is in relaxed condition. In this intestine we are having three parts. Out of them, first part is duodenum. It is the part which starts from the pyloric sphincter, from the stomach. This part is having the size of 25 centimeter, and its meaning of duodenum is nothing but the 12, means it is of are having size of 12 fingers only. So that's why it is the smallest part of our small intestine. It is having size 25 centimeter only. After that, next part is jejunum. Jejunum meaning is empty. So in case of the dead person it found empty, that's why it is called as jejunum. Its size is near about 1 meter. And after this jejunum, the next part is ileum. It is the largest part of our small intestine, and the meaning of ileum is nothing but the twisted. It is twisted in shape, that's why it is called ileum, and its size is 2 meter. Almost we are having 3 meter of this small intestine. After this ileum we are having ileocecal sphincter. It is the gate from which the large intestine or colon will start. It is called ileocecal sphincter. It is specialized smooth muscles are attached to this sphincter which contracts and relaxes at a time of open and close. Now after this, next is plicae circularis. It is a permanent fold of mucosa and submucosa that slow movement of chyme. Actually this plica circularis is made up of villi and microvilli, and you will find it into the mucosa and submucosa, and these are nothing but the folds. As we have found in case of stomach, rugi is there. So rugi is the part of folds, and that is the part which is responsible for development of this movement waves. So whatever the waves are there which is responsible for peristaltic movement, the same thing it produced by this plicae circularis. It revolves into our body. So for the movement of our small intestine, this plicae circularis is responsible. Now here we can see this is the location of small intestine, where this duodenum part is attached to with this stomach. So from here this starts. This is the duodenum, this jejunum, and largest part, curved part is nothing but the ileum. And from this ileum, this is the cecum part from where it starts. Ileocecal sphincter is here, and there is a small part, it is attached to that, it is called as appendix, foramen for appendix, and this is the rectum. In case of large intestine, there are 4 colons that we will see later on also. This is about the small intestine. Now in case of macroscopical anatomy, if you will see the small intestine, how it looks, we are having villi. These are nothing but the finger like projections that increases the surface area of small intestine. The small intestine is responsible for absorption, and for absorption it requires too much large surface area. Now these villi are providing that area through which they are absorbing the vital nutrients, drugs, elements, electrolytes, food and carbohydrate, protein, all the elements they are absorbing. So these villi are having great role into the absorption. Whereas its size, if you see, it is almost 1.5 to 1 millimeter in size. In 1 square millimeter you will find 20 to 30 villi are available. It is very small, it is smaller than our tip of our nails, so it is almost 1 millimeter in size. Now after this microvilli, they are the tiny projections on plasma membranes of columnar cells that appears fuzzy like broader cells. They are very small, and these microvilli, if you will see, they are having size almost 1 micron, means 1 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 6, 1 micron is there. You have to see this under the light microscope, and these microvilli are available. If you see there in 1 square millimeter, you will find almost 200 to 300 millions microvilli will found in only 1 millimeter square. Now next is crisps of Limbercunes. It is nothing but this, it secretes the intestinal juice. So how much juice is going to be secreted? 1 to 2 liter of juice will be secreted. Its pH is 7.6, and it contains the special lysozyme that protect against the bacteria. So that contain the bacteriolytic enzymes, which is called lysozymes. Peyer's patches, these are the aggregated lymphoid tissue. As we know, on our mucosa, on our lamina propria, you will find that malt. What is malt? Mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. So there is the group of this lymphoid tissue will occur. They are aggregated, and it is nothing but the Peyer's patches. It is responsible for immunity. It shows immunity response. It kills lots of bacteria, viruses, pathogens, and it shows the immune response. It protects us from the foreign pathogens. Now here, these are nothing but the lacteals, which contains the lymphatic tissue as well as blood vessels, which are having veins and arteries, which gives nourishment to our small intestine, and it carries all the nutrients through lacteals. This is the lumen, as you can see. These are the parts. This is the villi and microvilli. These are the microvilli. On one villi there are lots of microvilli are present, and these are the villi which you can see by your naked eyes, villi, and these are the microvilli. So this is the structure which you can see. Now various cells are available here, that we will see one by one. Okay. Now secretions of small intestine. So in the small intestine microscopy, the small intestine are having 4 layers. In that first is mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. Now in case of mucosa, it is composed of epithelium, simple epithelium cells. This mucosa contains 3 layers. First is epithelial cell, which is made up of simple epithelium. After that, next is lamina propria, and third is muscularis mucosa. Now out of them, most of these enzymes we will find on these epithelium cells and lamina propria cells. Now in the epithelium cells we will find the first cell, it is called absorptive cell. These cells are responsible for digestion of the food as well as for the absorption of vital nutrients which occurs in our food. Next is this goblet cell. These goblet cells are responsible for secretion of mucus, which provides moisture environment into our small intestine. After that, next is Paneth cell. These Paneth cells are responsible for secretion of lysozyme. Lysozime. What is lysozyme? It is the bacteriolytic enzyme which kills the bacteria. So it is the good enzymes which kills the bacteria, whatever bacteria which can produce the infection into our small intestine. Next is S cell. So that S cell secrete the secretin, and this secretin, these are the three types of enteroendocrine cells which are available into our small intestine. These all are nothing but the exocrine cell. Listen, try to understand. In small intestine also there are two types of cells are available. One is exocrine cell and second is endocrine cell. So there are only three endocrine cells are available. They are called as entero means small intestine. So they are called enteroendocrine cells. So there are three cells: S cell, after that CCK cell, and last is K cell. Now first is S cell. So this S cell secretes secretin, and it is the secretin is the cells when acidic chyme enters into the small intestine, so it neutralizes that chyme. It contains lots of acid, so for neutralizing purpose this secretin is having great role. It causes release of bicarbonate rich pancreas juice. Now next is CCK cell. This CCK cell is releases cholecystokinin. So it releases when more fat is there, fat or protein rich diet is there into our chyme, and it causes release of enzyme rich pancreatic juice and bile. So they are controlling the release of pancreatic juice from pancreas, as in last lecture we have discussed how the small intestine controls the secretion from pancreas as well as liver. So whenever the more fat and protein rich substance is there in our chyme, so definitely it will give rise for release of various pancreatic juice into our small intestine through duodenum. Now next is K cell. This K cell is also one of the enteroendocrine cell, and it is able to release the element, it is called glucose dependent insulinotropic peptide. It is also called as GIP, glucose dependent insulinotropic peptide. So it is a element which is secreted by K cell. Next is Brunner's gland. So up to this the elements are secreted into our mucosa. Some are from the epithelial cell, some are from the lamina propria, and from here the Brunner's cell, this is the element which can be secreted from the submucosa, and from submucosa we will know that it is also secretions of malt, mucosa associated lymphatic tissue, and in that the Brunner's gland is there. It will secrete the various alkaloid mucus. That mucus is responsible for neutralizing the acidic chyme which is coming from our stomach. After this, the brush border enzymes. So almost 1 liter of brush border enzymes are secreted into our small intestine. It processes long peptides, nucleic acids and sugar into smaller ones. These brush border enzymes, they are responsible for various activities. They are also containing various enzymes which kill the various bacteria, and they are also breakdown of various types of food, nucleic acid, peptides and sugars. Now after this we should know one word that is called lacteals, LACTL, lacteals. So lacteals is a lymphatic capillary. Nutrients absorbed by epithelial cells covering the villus pass through the wall of capillary, or lacteals enter blood or lymph. So lacteals is the element through which whatever the nutrient is there, it can be absorbed into the bloodstream, and also the lymphatic vessels are attached to these lacteals, LACTL, lacteal, don't forget this word, lacteals. So it is applied, as we can see in the figure also, lacteal is there. Yeah, this is the lacteals, which is accompanied with the lymphatic tissue as well as blood vessels, the oxygenated and deoxygenated both. It is called lacteals. Now digestion and absorptions. So as we know, the mechanical digestion, this small intestine is responsible for that. It contains that folds, it contains that breast border which moves, it contains villi, macrovilli, which is responsible for movement of food, for its absorptions, for its segmentations, for its mixing of various gastric juice, intestinal juice, which is clear yellow in color, and it is try to maintain the pH 7.6. It contains water, mucus and slightly alkaline, and it also contains the various pancreatic and the juice which is coming from the liver, gallbladder, etc. So it is the, now this breast border enzymes is able to release several enzymes. It is having several enzymes for each type of food. So for carbohydrate, it is having the digestive enzymes called alpha dextrinase, which is for dextrin, maltase, sucrase and lactase. And for protein digesting enzymes, it is having peptidase, which having aminopeptidase and dipeptidase. And there are two types of nucleic acid digestive enzymes, which is nucleosidase and phosphatases. So like this, these 6 to 7 types of enzymes are available in our breast border enzymes. Now in case of this digestion, again it is able to digest various types of foods. For example, digestion of carbohydrates. So from the mouth the digestion starts. So from the salivary amylase, which continue into the small intestine. In the small intestine, pancreatic amylase is going to be secrete, which is responsible for digestion of carbohydrates, and also breast border enzymes which secrete the alpha dextrinase, which acts resulting from dextrins. It also contains sucrase, which break down the sucrose. Also contains the lactases, which digest the lactose into molecules of glucose, and maltose, which splits maltose and maltose into 2 or 3 molecules of glucose. After that, digestion of proteins. As we already know, for proteins also the various proteolytic enzymes are secreted into the various types of organs. For example, from stomach it secretes pepsin. So pepsin start to do the proteolytic activity from stomach. It continue in the juice which is coming from the pancreas, which contains trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase and elastase, which is responsible for breakdown of various types of proteins which comes into our small intestine. Now after that, digestion of lipids. So from the stomach, the chief cells secrete the gastric lipases, which is responsible for the digestion of these lipids. It also continue in our small intestines. Here the lingual lipase, gastric lipase and pancreatic lipase are come together. They are doing the digestion of these lipids. These enzymes, they are doing the emulsification of these lipids, and they are breakdown of that long lipid chain into smaller parts, and in this fashion they are doing the digestion. Again, digestion of nucleic acids. Pancreatic juice contains 2 nucleases, ribonucleic nuclease and deoxyribonucleases, which are for RNA and DNA. Also, breast border contains nucleosidases and phosphatases. They are responsible for digestion of nucleic acids. Now we will go for this absorption of small intestine. Now, almost 70 to 90% of absorption of food occurs in small intestine because it is having very vast area, almost 3 meters of area, where the maximum work is for absorption also. And from this absorption into the blood, it will carries toward the liver, and after that it will go into the heart. So, what is the role of absorptions? Whatever food we are eating, whatever drug we are taking, ingesting in your mouth, and it comes into your GIT, it must show its action. When it will show? When it will come into your systemic blood circulation. And when it will go into blood circulation? When it will absorb into our blood. So the absorption process, here you can see how it occurs, how these proteins can be absorbed, amino acids can be absorbed. After that, these various carbohydrates, lipids going to be absorbed through these lacteals, how the process of absorption occurs. Now, absorption of monosaccharides, all carbohydrates absorbs as monosaccharides. The capacity of small intestine to absorb monosaccharide is very huge. So it is estimated 120 gram per hour. It is too much, so it is very fastly absorbed into the small intestine. Absorption of amino acid, dipeptides and tripeptides. Most proteins are absorbed in amino acids via active transport processes that occur mainly in the duodenum and jejunum. About half of the absorbed amino acids are present in the food. 95 to 98% of protein present in the small intestine is digested and absorbed. Now after that, absorption of lipids. All dietary lipids are absorbed via simple diffusion. Adults absorb about 95% of lipid present in the small intestine. Due to their lower production of bile, newborn infant absorb only about 85% of lipids. Large short chain fatty acids, long chain fatty acids and monoglycerides are larger and hydrophobic, and since they are not water soluble, they have to difficulty being suspended in watery environment in the intestinal chyme. Now absorption of electrolytes. Many electrolytes absorbed via small intestine come from the gastrointestinal secretions, and some are part of ingested foods and liquids. Recall that electrolytes are compounds that separate into ions in water and conduct electricity. As also we know, in the water the various pumps are available, like sodium potassium pump is there. Now absorption of vitamins. As we already know that the fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, K are included with ingested dietary lipids in micelle concentration, and they are diffused into our bloodstream. And also water soluble vitamins like B vitamins and vitamin C, they are also absorbed via simple diffusion, and vitamin B12 also combines with the intrinsic factor produced by the stomach, and they are absorbed. Now absorption of water. Total volume of fluid that enter into the small intestine, each about 9.3 liters, and out of them almost 80 to 90% of water is going to be absorbed into our small intestine. Now we will start from the large intestine. Now as we know, large intestine is having size near about 1.5 meter, and it is having the width near about 6.5 centimeter in diameter. It extends from ileum to the anus. It starts from the ileum, from the cecum. Cecum is the part, ileocecum sphincter, it will starts. It is attached to the posterior abdominal wall of mesocolon. It is attached from mesocolon into the peritoneal serum. Now these colon are having four types. First is ascending colon. It is at the right side of the abdomen, which reaches the inferior surface of the liver. And next is transverse colon. The colon continues across the abdomen to the left side of the transverse colon. It curves beneath the inferior end of spleen and left side of left colic fixture. After that, it continue into the descending colon which go downward. After descending colon there is a sigmoid colon which begins near the left iliac crest and project medially to the midline. Rectum, last 20 centimeter of GI is called rectum, means it is almost 8 inch apart. It lies anterior to the sacrum and coccyx. Now if we will see the functions of large intestine, it is having the function of reabsorption of remaining water which is remained into the chyme. The remaining can be absorbed through this large intestine and electrolytes as well. Production and absorption of vitamin B and K, and elimination of feces. It do the evacuation of bowel. So during this it absorbs the water along with the sodium. If more watery stool is there, it releases more sodium ions, because sodium ions are go with the ions of water take that sodium ions. Diameter is only 7 centimeter, larger than the small intestine. Now gross anatomy of large intestine. It contains the tinea coli. These are the bands of smooth muscle that creates pocket like sacs. Cecum, it is a sac-like connection between the small and large intestine. Appendix, it is a small structure that containing lymphoid tissue, small immune function. It is just like the submucosa in small intestine. So this contains the lots of lymphoid tissue which is required for the phagocytosis. Ascending, descending, transverse and sigmoid colon is there. So they are the part of splenic and hepatic fixture. So splenic fixture is nothing but it is the part of the colon which is at the left side, and the hepatic fixture is the part of the colon which is at the right side, means it is below the liver. That's why it is called hepatic fixture. Now rectum, it is a storage area where it can store almost 100 gram to 500 gram of the feces at one time, and it releases in one defecation. Anus, it regulates the defecation with two sphincter muscles, internal and external. That's why externally the voluntary muscles are attached, the skeletal muscle is attached, which can control voluntarily the will of defecation. It can be controlled voluntarily. Now here we can see this large intestine. Here it is the appendix, this is the cecum part, and from here this is the ascending limb of colon, this is the transverse colon, this is the descending limb of colon, this is the sigmoid colon, S-shaped sigmoid colon, and last part, it is 20 centimeter part is rectum, and lastly is anal, which contains the sphincter, external anal sphincter. So in this fashion the colon part is there, that one should know. Now microscopical anatomy of large intestine. Simple columnar epithelium for absorption except in the anal canal where there is stratified squamous epithelium cells. There is no villi, there is no digestive secreting cells, there is no more absorption. Absorption is there but not like small intestine. Globate cells produce mucus for lubrication of feces. It smoothen the feces. It increases the mechanical movement of that feces into the forward directions. Bacterial flora synthesizes vitamin B and most of the vitamin K needed for blood clotting. Now here we can see this is lamina propria part. This is the columnar cells with striated borders. This is the globate cell which secrete the mucus. This is Krebs cells. This is the muscularis mucosa. Now summary of digestions, as we already know that how digestion of carbohydrate occurs, how the digestion of this protein occurs, how it has been by transform into the liver, how it can be converted, how the from the salivary amylase, pancreatic amylase, they are involved, the various enzymes from the brush border, so they come closer and they will responsible for digestion of these carbohydrates. Likewise for the protein also, from pepsin, proteolytic enzymes from pancreas, brush border enzymes, they are involved into the digestion of proteins. And this digestion of fats also we have discussed. In small intestine it occurs, how it occurs that we already discussed. Nucleic acid, there are various enzymes, some enzymes from this pancreas, deoxyribonuclease, ribonucleases, and brush border enzymes like nucleosidases and phosphatases. So these enzymes are responsible for digestion of the nucleic acid. Now clinical corner. So this clinical corner is nothing but the various terminologies, various parts that one should know. That one thing we should know that this large intestine absorbs 90% of all water absorbed occurs in the small intestines. The large intestine absorbs enough to make important organ to maintaining body's water balance. So this large intestine maintaining the water balance. So almost 90% absorbed by the small intestine, but whatever the water is remain, it can be absorbed through large intestine. Means it is maintaining the texture of feces. Feces should not be too much hard that all water can be absorbed by large intestine, and it should not be too much less absorption so that the watery stool will form. So it should maintain the texture of feces stool. For that the large intestine is maintaining its absorption rate. Now here we will discuss some terminologies, some diseases that we should know regarding these GID. In that, first is peptic ulcer. It is nothing but the gastric and duodenal ulcer which occurs to our stomach as well as small intestine, duodenal part. It causes by Helicobacter pylori. This is the vector which is responsible for this ulcer, and also due to some drugs, NSAID, HCl, hypersecretions, when you are taking more fat containing food or more spicy foods or more non-veg, so it will induce the more secretion of HCl. Also there are some antibiotics like amoxicillin or anti-cancer drugs, so they are also able to damage your mucosa. Now next is cirrhosis. It is a scared liver due to chronic inflammation. So after the chronic inflammation, the liver will become fatty liver, and due to which liver won't able to do its function, won't able to produce its secretions, and liver become very scared, won't able to do its proper function. Liver is swelled, inflamed. That condition is called as cirrhosis. Hepatitis, there are 4 types of hepatitis: A, B, C, D and E also. So the virus is there, that virus is responsible for this inflammation of liver, hepatitis. Now biliary caliculi, the gallstone, crystals of cholesterol into the bile. So when this cholesterol are developed into the salts and will become hard, so it is able to produce the gallstone. In the gallbladder the stone is going to be formed, it is like kidney stone. Barborygmus, it is a rumbling noise occurred by gas through intestines. So when in intestine the mixing and the peristaltic movement continue into the villi macrovilli brush border, so due to that the rumbling sound comes, so it is called barborygmus. Next term is cholecystitis. It is the inflammation of gallbladder when the gallbladder is going to be inflamed. Colitis, it is nothing but the ulcerative colitis. It is the inflammation of colon, and due to which it can lead into the ulceration also. Dysphagia, it is a condition in which difficulty in swallowing occurs. You cannot open your mouth completely. It is called dysphagia. So dysphagia can be occur in various diseases also. Inflammation of to your larynx, pharynx, or your uvula, or hard palate, small palates. So it will produce the difficulty in swallowing is called dysphagia. Dys means difficulty, phasia means swallowing. Enteritis, inflammation of the intestine, it is called enteritis. Also flatulation and erection. Ulcerative colitis, and it is the progression of this colitis when after colitis, after inflammation of our colon, when it produces the ulcers, and through this ulcer means our mucosa layer up to the lamina propria, the layer can be damaged, and through which the blood vessels are exposed, and they will drain the blood into the colon, into the lumen. Through feces, bleeding will occur. So that condition is called as ulcerative colitis, in which person is go for toilet for more than 3 times in a day, and watery stool may occurs. Actually, ulcerative colitis is nothing but it is the summary, or it is the result from the either continue diarrhea or continue constipation. After that, this bacterial infection going to be developed, and due to which the ulcerative colitis may occurs. Next is Crohn's disease. It is an autoimmune disease, Crohn's disease, and it can take your not only colon but also it can erode, it can take, or it can infect, or it can produce ulceration into our small intestine as well. And it is also very dangerous. It is very difficult to treat, actually untreatable. We have to take the steroids, or we have to take the drugs like mesacol, means mesalamine like drugs, and you should take this drug for Lyme lock. After that, next is diarrhea. Diarrhea is the condition when the watery stools are going to be formed, and watery stools form when there is a sodium ions are released loose into the water, due to which sodium loss will occur and stool becomes watery. It will also produce into the direct dysentery in the amoebiasis, or in the bacterial infections like E. coli infections, or the infections of the Staphylococcus aureus. So these are the various bacterial infections which can produce diarrhea. Constipations, so due to some food or due to some bad habits, this constipation will occur when person is not having will to do defecation. Person don't do defecation for more than 2 days. So continue constipation may leads into the piles, or it will leads into the ulcerative colitis. Piles is nothing but when the hemorrhoids are going to be formed, hemorrhoids, and due to which the bleeding may occurs through the anus. So it is called piles, piles, piles. After that, polyps are nothing but the extra growth or overgrowth on the mucosa part of our rectum. To the rectum, extra growth of the epithelial cells on our mucosa. That extra growth is nothing but the polyps, and that polyps may induce bleeding during the defecation. Bleeding may occur whenever feces will touch to the polyp, it will produce the bleeding during the defecation. And the surgical management is available by doing surgery, by we can remove that polyp from our rectum part, from the mucosa. And the polyp may get converted into the cancers if it is not treated properly. So if anybody is having a polyp, so they should immediately go for surgery, or they should take the drugs which can remove that. Simply you should go for the surgery, for the good surgeon who can do it properly. It can produce again and again if you don't properly cut it. Flatulence, these are nothing but the conditions when the gas produces from the large intestine. The sulfur gas, carbonate gas can be produced, and it can come out from the anus, so with the bad odor. So that typical condition is called as flatulence. Why flatulence produce? When our food is not going to be digested properly, so due to that the food is going to be fermented. That's why I am telling you that don't take more food or extra food unnecessarily. Take foods that much you require. only that much you should take. If you are taking more food, unnecessary food, if you won't use it, won't consume it into the, won't develop it into the calories, definitely it will be wastage for you, and that food is will be undigested, and undigested food will be fermented into our colon, and that fermented food will going to be develop the various gases, and that gases will pass, bad odor will pass through our anus, and it is problematic conditions. If will continue that for several period, it will produces the various digestion problems, various digestive complications can be develops. After that, some fistula is also there. Fistula is nothing but the condition when that feces come out other than the anus way, means normally from anus the feces coming out, but in case of fistula it comes from the other way, from the other route, when that part is going to be breakdown of your nearby your part of your rectum, from that skin it broke down and it will come along with the blood, it will come out, so it is called fistula. So like these various types of diseases are there of our digestive system, and the person who is master of this, it is called as gastroenterologist. So it is deals with the various diseases of the gastrointestinal tract. It may be esophagus, stomach, or small large intestine. There are lots of diseases of the GIT. In Ayurveda also it is a base of our system, that we should properly clean our GIT. If your GIT is good, according to Ayurveda, you are a good human being, means you are don't have any disease, you are free from all the diseases. So that is the basic principles of Ayurveda. So in this session we have completed today's presentation. I hope you understood. Up to this I will keep the part into our first sessional examination. So all the best for your examination, and be there sharp at 11 o'clock tomorrow in the morning. See you then. Bye.